So I went to meet Adrian, and I embraced him. And he told me there, he said, you know, Eddie, we were having lunch, and he said, you know, Eddie, I was president of NUSAS for 2 consecutive terms. He was an international figure. President of NUSAS for 2 consecutive terms. NUSAS, the National Union of South African Students, a very prestigious position. And he said, they have written to me and informed me that my name has been expunged from the roll of honor. So that's Adrian, you see. Then, so under 90 days, we had a rough time. As a matter of fact, I asked to be allowed a bucket in my cell because there was no bucket and no flush toilets. And they told me you can't have a bucket because a bucket is a dangerous weapon. I was out without a bucket for 92 days. I was out for 92 days. And when you require the toilet and you can't have access to a toilet, it's excruciating. Nevertheless, I survived. So I was asked on 3 occasions to be state witness for the state. I declined. And Adrian had volunteered. So, and both he and I were members of the National Executive. And so they had to take him. And so I was awaiting trial. And I was held with 4 others in a big cell. And I didn't know them at the time, but I got to know them. And one of them pointed out a warder to me. A warder is this guy who looks after us. And told me this warder is a friendly chap. So when he came around, I stopped him and I said, excuse me, if I give you 2,000 rand, that's South African currency, if I give you 2,000 rand, will you bring me some hacksaw blades? So hacksaw blades is what you saw through the iron bars, steel bars with it. And he said he would. But when he left, I was so ashamed of myself because I never had 2,000 rand. So when he came back, I said, how about 200? I said, I haven't got 2,000, it's 200 okay? And he said, yes. So I said, bring the hacksaw blades. And we saw through the bars. But the night we were supposed to go out, the escape guard didn't pitch up. The authorities discovered the bars were cut. We denied that we were responsible, but they put me back under 90 days again, you know. Then I appeared in court, and there were 5 of us. 3 were charged with fulfilling the aims of communism, and the maximum sentence was 5 years. So they were charged, they were given 3 years to suspended. My colleague and I were charged with sabotage that carried the death penalty, and I was accused number 1. The judge in his wisdom sentenced me to 15 years imprisonment and my fellow accused to 10. I was then taken up to Paulsmoor prison, the jail I tried to get away from, escape from. And I was put into prison clothes, I was shackled and handcuffed and taken to Robben Island. Now when the judge sentenced me to 15 years, my mother got up and said, you know, she said, my boy, Mommy will never ever see you again. I said, Mom, I'll be all right. But I did not think I would be all right, because after Sharpeville, I don't know if you know about Sharpeville, but Sharpeville took place on the 21st of March 1960, where a massacre took place. The police shot down 69 people, unarmed people, and then and hurt and wounded many others. Riots broke out. There was an emergency declared in my country, and lots of people were arrested. Some of these people went to Robben Island. They were sentenced to Robben Island for 3 months and 6 months. And the conditions were very bad, very bad. They had threadbare clothing, they were bare feet, they were exposed to the elements, they had brutal warders, and the warders had dogs. So things were a bit rough. So I knew I was going to Robben Island, and I wasn't going for 3 months or 6 months. I was going for 15 years. So after the sentence, the 4 I was with, they were 4, they were white. They went to Victoria, a white prison. I'm black, and I went to Robben Island where blacks go. And ladies and gentlemen, I thought I was going to my death. When they took me from Portsmouth prison down to the harbour, they removed my shackles, kept my handcuffs on, and put me down in the hold of a boat, a small boat, and they pushed me in there. It was dark, it was frightening, and while there I saw a little plank. I'm going to sit on my plank, and I looked around, and I saw 3 little portholes on the side of the boat, small portholes. I made my way to these portholes, and I tried to see where I was going to. The portholes were painted black. I couldn't see a thing. So there I was, back on my plank. I was all alone. I was very frightened. I had no one to share my fears with. But when I got to Robben Island, my life changed. My life changed. Not only did I survive, I met some of the greatest people one can ever hope to meet. Mr. Nelson Mandela, Mr. Walter Sisulu, Mr. Rada, Governor Mbeki, and others. Wonderful people, people with integrity, people with compassion, people with courage. I was happy to be with them. And so I say thank you to the world for helping us bring about a change. We were in very bad conditions initially, but world pressure brought about changes, positive changes for us. And so we went from bad to better, to better, to better, all the time. International Red Cross came to see us, and other international organizations. Spurred on by the world's protests against the apartheid regime. And excuse me. So and the further thing that happened to me, I got my education. I went to prison with a grade 8 to standard 6. And I hadn't been to school for about 30 years. But world pressure, due to all of you, world pressure persuaded the South African government to allow us to study. And I studied, among others, we all studied. We helped one another to study. We had lawyers in jail, we had high school teachers in jail, we had doctors in jail. And I earned 2 degrees, a BA and a BCom. So I owe my education to the world because they encouraged the South African government to allow us to study. And in a light-hearted moment, I say, I haven't only got 2 degrees, I've got 3 degrees. My 3rd degree was my 1st degree, and that I got from the skill degrees. So on the island, we were locked up for 23 hours of the day, and that is long before you're allowed to study. 23 hours of the day, often exercise the morning, often exercise the afternoon. All we had in our cells was a thin mat, and we slept on the concrete floor. We had 3 dirty blankets, stinking blankets, and a bucket. We had a bucket. And that's how we lived. Silence, we're not allowed to talk. Silence. And that's how we lived for about 12 months. Then we were allowed to work in the yard, chop big slabs of slate into gravel. Excuse me. After a while, because of the psychological effect, we asked to be allowed to work outside the yard, and they allowed us to work at the quarry, lime quarry. and that was much better. We could see a sky, a bit of sky. We could have a bit of elbow room. Of course, we were swinging a pick and using the shovel, but we got by. We got by. I also, Mr. Mandela befriended me in jail, and he and I became friends. The African National Congress helped me to survive. They were very good to me in jail. I was the only prisoner of my organization in jail. So Mr. Mandela and I became good friends. We still are today, good friends. Somebody's smoking over there. Goes on my chest.
Yeah, he's smoking.
I can see that. Okay, nevertheless, we persevere. So one day Mr. Mandela came back from the quarry, and he wanted to know, where's Danny? I haven't seen Danny today. I'm Danny. And Mr. Mandela's cell is at the bottom of the corridor, where the entrance is. My cell's on top of the corridor. So he comes all the way up to my cell. He sits down on the floor.
Are you down here?
And he comforts me. He's then gone. He went back to his cell, locked up in his cell, single cell. I was locked up in mine. We were only 30 of us. My universe was 30 people. We were not allowed to mix with anybody else. Not allowed to see people. They were not allowed to see us. Next morning, Mr. Mandela comes into my cell. He came walking up the corridor with his bucket under his arm. He put his bucket down in my cell on the floor. He sat down next to me, and again he comforted me. And then he got up. He picked up his bucket under one arm, he picked up my bucket on the other arm, and he walked down the toilet. The toilet is narrower, 1.5 of this cells opposite, one of the opposite each other. He walked down the toilet, he went down the corridor, went to the common toilet in the yard, emptied the contents of my bucket, cleaned my bucket, and brought it back to me. Now to put this story into context, Mr. Mandela, an international figure, the leader of the most powerful organization fighting the apartheid government, the most important prisoner in South Africa. He could have instructed any of his members to go and look after Danny. He could have looked the other way.